When truth is buried, the silence is demanded. We stand at our freedom's edge.
And this is our Freedom's Edge. Welcome to our Freedom's Edge, episode 13, The Line We Keep Moving. Before I begin, I want to say something briefly. If my voice sounds a little different right now, it's because I'm going through significant dental work related to ongoing health issues. But I'm still here, I'm still recording, and I'm still committed to this work. So if my speech is a little off in places, I appreciate your patience. The voice may sound a little different, but the message has not changed, and neither has the conscience behind it. Thank you. The line we keep moving. There are lines we say we would never cross. Lines around truth. Lines around decency. Lines around human dignity. Lines around what we will excuse, what we will defend, and what we will allow ourselves to become. Most of us like to believe those lines are firm. We like to believe we would recognize danger before it became familiar. We like to believe we'd stand up when it mattered. But lines do not usually disappear all at once. They move slowly, quietly, almost politely. They move when someone says something ugly and no one challenges it. When a lie becomes easier to repeat than correct. When people tell themselves, that's just how he is. People are too sensitive. We have bigger things to worry about. Every one of those phrases gives permission. Permission to adjust, permission to excuse, permission to lower the standard. That's how the line moves. Sometimes at a kitchen table, sometimes in a church pew, sometimes in a voting booth, sometimes inside a person who knows better, but decides the cost of saying so is too high. If episode 12 asks, what are we becoming? This episode asks, how the hell did we get here? And part of the answer is this. We kept moving the line a little further, a little quieter, a little more often, until the thing we once said we would never accept began to look like something we were willing to live with. And it often begins with that first exception. Most lines do not move because someone announces to the world they are abandoning their values. They move because someone makes an exception. Just this once. For this person, this election, this party, this moment. We tell ourselves the exception is temporary. We tell ourselves we're being practical. We say, yeah, that was wrong, but there are bigger issues. Maybe sometimes there are bigger issues. But if we can excuse anything by pointing to something else, then we really don't have a line. We have a preference. A line costs something. A line says, no, not even when it benefits me. No, not even when it helps my side. No, Not even when I'm angry. No, not even when I'm afraid. That's what makes it a line. But we have watched people make exception after exception. An exception for lies, then for threats, then for humiliation, then for corruption. Each time the explanation changes. This time is different. This time is necessary. This time the other side is worse. This time decency can wait. Some point we have to ask, how many exceptions can a person make before the exception becomes the rule? Because if something is never a deal breaker, then it is not a principle. It is a performance. It is something we say about ourselves because it sounds good. But when the moment comes to defend it, we put it away and call it wisdom. That is one of the ways the line moves. We make an exception and then another. And eventually, we become people who are always explaining why this time is different. The explanations sound ordinary. They sound familiar. They sound like people trying to make peace with something they know is wrong. And one of the easiest ways we make peace is through language. The line often moves through what people say to make what they do feel acceptable. Language can make dishonesty sound strategic. It can make meanness sound bold. It can make silence sound peaceful. It can make moral surrender sound like common sense. We've all heard the phrases. That's just how he is, as if predictable indecency becomes less serious. People are too sensitive, as if the problem is not the harm, but the people who still feel it. Well, he tells it like it is, as if saying the ugly thing out loud makes it true. It's just politics, as if politics does not shape real lives and real families. And then there is the really familiar sentence, I don't like everything he says, but that sentence can sound reasonable, balanced, practical. Sometimes it is not balance. Sometimes it is permission. Because the first half tells us something important. People know. They are saying, I know. And then they keep going. That is not ignorance. That is a choice. Every time we use language to make something wrong feel tolerable, we train ourselves to accept a little more. A lie becomes just exaggeration. A threat becomes just talk. Humiliation becomes just humor. Indecency becomes just his style. Before long, the language has done its work. The line has moved, not because the thing became acceptable, but because we found a way to talk about it as if it were acceptable. Words prepare the room. They tell people what will be challenged and what will be allowed. And sometimes the clearest sign of what a room has begun to accept is not only what it says, it's also what it laughs at. A culture reveals itself by what it laughs at. Sometimes laughter is how people test the room. Someone mocks a disabled person. Someone makes a degrading comment about a woman. Someone turns immigrants, gay people, or transgender people into a punchline. And then they wait. They wait to see who laughs, who looks away, who challenges them. When the room laughs, the line moves. When the room stays quiet, the line moves. When someone says, it was just a joke, the line moves. Because it is never, ever just a joke when the punchline reduces someone else's humanity. I think many of us have been in that room. Someone says something ugly and everyone feels the air change. Maybe someone looks down. Maybe someone gives a nervous laugh. Maybe someone changes the subject. And just like that, the person who caused the harm is protected by everyone else's discomfort. We call that keeping the peace. But sometimes what we call keeping the peace is really protecting the person who broke it. I know what it feels like to be tired, to hear one more ignorant comment and think, I do not have the energy for this today. But every time we stay quiet, while someone else is diminished, something in us learns to accept the room as it is. I do not want to become someone who knows better but performs silence. I do not want my peace to depend on someone else swallowing harm. The line has to matter in the ordinary rooms where character is quietly revealed. Because public contempt does not remain behind a microphone. Ordinary people repeat it. Families absorb it. Communities make room for it. And often it happens close to home. At the kitchen table, in the grocery store, in the waiting room, in the family conversation, in the comment someone makes when they think everyone agrees. The conversation is ordinary at first. Food, weather, appointments. Then someone says something degrading about people they have decided are acceptable to look down on. And there it is. The line. Right there between the plates and the coffee cups. Everyone feels it. They may laugh. They may look away. They may say, let's not get into politics. But they know. And the question becomes, what happens next? Because the line is not moved only by the person who says the ugly thing. It is moved when the one who speaks up is treated like the problem. Someone says something degrading. Someone else says, that's not okay. And suddenly, the person who objected is accused of ruining the mood. You're too sensitive. It's too political. You're too difficult. But they do not put the harm in the room. They named it. Naming what is wrong is not what breaks peace. What is wrong has already broken it. We have to stop punishing people who name harm while protecting people who create it. Silence is not neutral when someone is being diminished. Silence tells the person who spoke harm, hey, you're safe here. You can say that here. No one will stop you here. So, what kind of room are we helping create? A room where people are protected from being dehumanized? Or a room where people are protected from being challenged? Those are not the same room. I know, because one day that choice came to my own door. I know what it feels like when the line is not a headline or something happening far away. I had a neighbor once who was very clear he was a Holocaust denier, a white supremacist, the kind of person who did not hold ugly beliefs quietly, but needed other people to hear them. For a while, I walked away from his comments. Then one day, he approached me about the browning of America. And there it was, the line. Not on television, not in a history book, right there in my own neighborhood. I had a choice. I could keep the peace as I had before. I could walk away. I could tell myself he wasn't worth it, that I was tired, that I didn't want to deal with it, that it could not change anything anyway. But I understood something else. If I stayed silent, he would leave believing there was room for that hatred with me. He might believe I tolerated it, maybe even that I agreed. And I could not allow that. So I let my conscience speak. Not perfectly, not politely, but clearly. And when I was done, my entire neighborhood knew where I stood. They knew I was not available for that kind of hate. They knew I was no longer moving my line for anyone. That matters. Not because I changed him. I didn't. Not because the moment was easy. It wasn't. But sometimes the line stops moving the moment we refuse to help it move. Sometimes the witness is for everyone else watching. Sometimes it is for the part of ourselves that needs to know we still have a line. That incident never left me. Not because I wanted conflict. I didn't. Not because I enjoy confrontation. I don't. It stayed with me because conscience only matters when we are willing to use it. And because it reminded me how easily we can move our own lines for comfort, for avoidance, or simply because we're tired. I find that deeply unsettling. Conscience shows up when staying quiet would be easier. When your body is tired, when your voice shakes, when you know there may be consequences. There are some things we cannot keep letting go because when we let them go, they do not disappear. They settle. They make themselves comfortable. And eventually the room changes, the neighborhood changes, the country changes. And maybe we change with it. But holding the line means little if we hold it only against people we oppose. A moral line that applies only to our opponents is not a moral line. It is a weapon. We condemn a lie when it comes from someone we dislike. When it comes from our side, we explain it. We condemn corruption from the other side. When our side does it, we call it strategy or politics. That's not conscience. That's convenience. Every side can fail. Every leader should be questioned. Every institution should be accountable. None of us gets to outsource morality to a party, a church, a movement, a candidate, or a flag. Conscience has to go with us when our side is uncomfortable, when our friends are wrong, when someone we admire causes harm, when truth does not flatter our position. Because if truth matters only when it helps us, then truth is not what matters to us at all. Winning matters then. And when winning becomes more important than truth, morality becomes tribal. Their harm is unforgivable. Our harm is complicated. That allows people to believe they are moral while excusing what they once opposed. So where is the line when it is your side? When it is someone you voted for, someone you defended? Can you still say, no, that is wrong? Not even from my side, because the next generation is watching. We tell children not to bully, then they watch adults reward bullies. We tell them to tell the truth, then they watch adults cheer for liars. We tell them to stand up for what is right, then they watch adults stay quiet because dinner might become uncomfortable. They are not only listening to our words, they are watching our permissions. The line we move today becomes the starting point they inherit tomorrow. So how does the line stop moving? Not perfectly, not all at once. It stops when people stop giving permission. And permission doesn't always look like applause. Sometimes it looks like silence, sometimes a laugh, sometimes changing the subject, sometimes saying, that's just how he is. Stopping the line may begin with something small in size, but not in meaning. A sentence, a refusal, a correction, a boundary. Someone says something degrading, and we say, no, that is not okay. Someone repeats a lie, and we say, no, that is not true. Someone says, that is just politics. And we say, no, human dignity is not just politics. Someone says, Oh, you know how he is. And we say, then maybe that's the problem. The line stops because someone refuses to help move it. Even when people call you difficult. Even when people say you're making everything political. Because what they often mean is, please stop making me responsible for what I am willing to ignore. But responsibility is not something we can avoid forever. The line is carried in us. It is in what we get used to, what we laugh at, what we excuse, what we say when the room goes quiet. The line is not moved only by those with power. It is moved by those who give power permission. Knowing something is wrong is not the same as acting. Knowing is only the beginning. Conscience is not complete until it moves us. I do not say that as someone who has always gotten this right. I have not. There have been times I stayed quiet, times I chose exhaustion over confrontation, times I protected my own peace instead of naming what was in front of me. But silence does not leave us untouched. The things we tolerate begin to shape the space inside us. That is why the line matters. That is not only about the country, it is about the person we become while living in it. The line keeps moving because people keep helping it move. Sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, sometimes with a vote, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with silence. But the line can stop. It can stop when one person refuses to excuse what they know is wrong. When one person refuses to laugh. When one person says, no, that is not decent. That is not true. That is not who I am. And I will not help you move this line any further. Maybe that's where we begin. Not by pretending we have always been brave, but with honesty. Yes, I have let things pass. Yes, I have been tired. Yes, I have avoided the argument, but I can stop. I can notice. I can choose differently. And maybe that is the reflection for this episode. Where has your line moved? What have you started accepting that once would have disturbed you? What have you explained away because facing it would cost too much? And most importantly, where does the line stop now? Because the line will keep moving if we keep moving with it. But it does not have to move through us, not through our silence, not through our excuses, not through our laughter, not through our permission, and definitely not through the conscience we still have left. This is our freedom's edge, where courage meets conscience. Stay awake, stay vigilant, stay loud, stay free, and stay on the edge with me.
When truth is buried, the silence is demanded. We We stand at our freedom's edge.